The task of rooting out waste, fraud, abuse, inefficiencies, and mismanagement, as well as identifying federal programs and agencies at risk of failure, requires persistent and diligent oversight. That's why we look forward, in some ways, each Congress to the GAO's release of its high-risk list. It serves as a guide for us as we plan our oversight activities for the upcoming Congress. What is most troubling to me about the latest high-risk list is how little it has changed from 2 years ago, how little it has changed in many ways from 1990. For example, the improper payment problem that Senator Lieberman just mentioned in the Medicare and Medicaid programs are a perennial that have been on the list year after year, Congress after Congress since 1990. I'm hopeful that as we work with GAO, that we can identify ways to narrow down the problems that cause programs and agencies to land on this list and focus like a laser on what has to be done to remove these programs and agencies from the list year after year, once and for all. I want to comment on just a few of the programs that are on the list. The first is the Postal Service. The Postal Service lost an astonishing $8.5 billion last year. For a brief time after we passed the reforms in 2006, the Postal Service was removed from the high-risk list, only to land back on it in 2009. I believe that legislation is going to be necessary to reform the Postal Service and to put it on a sound financial footing, and that's going to be a priority for me during this Congress. A second grouping that the GAO has identified is how vulnerable our information technology systems are to the risk of a cyber attack. Senator Lieberman and I, working with Senator Carper, have introduced a cybersecurity bill. We're working to strengthen and improve that bill, and we'll be introducing it this week. The fact that government IT is continually showing up on the high-risk list shows that we need to really focus further on this area as well. After all, the Sergeant at Arms Office has reported that in a single month, government computers were under cyber attack an astonishing 1.8 billion times. That's in 1 month alone. There are other areas that I believe we need to really focus on. I noticed that the census has been removed from the high-risk list. That's because obviously the 2010 census has been completed. But were I compiling this list, I would put the 2020 census on the list right now. Given the amount of money that was wasted, the hundreds of millions of dollars in failed IT projects, I think it's absolutely essential that we take a close look at the plans for the 2020 census to try to avoid some of the waste that occurred with the 2010 census. Finally, in light of our committee's extensive investigation into the failures that allowed the Fort Hood massacre to occur, it is disappointing but not surprising that effective information sharing on terrorist threats remains on the high-risk list. We are going to continue to push the administration to implement the reforms that we've outlined in our recently released report. And certainly the GAO's work and listing of this area on the high-risk list gives added support to our efforts. So I just want to conclude by thanking GAO for giving us a roadmap for our oversight activities in this Congress.